Welcome, everyone.
Great to see some familiar faces and familiar names here.
Anybody want to introduce themselves really quick? Just say hello, your name, and where you're coming from.
Hi, I'm Maria Porchavina. I reside in a region called Southwest Montana. We're a 9-county region funded through bed tax dollars. We also have an ambassador program that we have purchased that you have been helping us with through the Learn Tourism Academy. And I am a tourism nerd.
Good morning or good afternoon. Jordan Angerman. I'm with Chicago, or the DMO or the CVB for Chicago. I head up the membership partnership department and just saw this come across my email and thought I would just hop on and join the group and listen into the conversation.
Hi there, I'm Julie Schickel. I'm from Visit Lex in Lexington, Kentucky. I am the Director of Industry Engagement. It's a new title and it is focused on education, so I'm kind of interested in hearing what y'all have to say.
Hi, my name is Ife Bayo. I'm from the Grand Prairie Regional Tourism Association. I'm the Visitor Information Services Coordinator here. And I thought it would be good to listen and learn on how to unite my members and with topic. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much. I'm Sarah Benoit. I'm with Learn Tourism. I'm one of the newer members of the team. I'm really excited to be here today to share some information with everyone and some ideas and examples. And I'm here with Stephen, our CEO. Let's say hello to everybody real quick.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I am the chief nerd over here, a nerd whisperer. I'm a nerd. I love to learn. So I'm excited.
So just a couple housekeeping things as we're going along. I want you to feel comfortable unmuting and asking questions. If you have any questions, you can also chat in if that's easier. And also I am recording this and we've got a slide deck I'm going to share with y'all. So you'll get a copy of all those things and go back over some of the stuff that we share. Well, I'm going to dive right in and kick us off. So we're going to be talking today about how to build destination loyalty through education, something I personally am really passionate about and can't wait to kind of hear from you all how you're approaching this subject. If you don't know about Learn Tourism, I want us to just hear a little preview of what we do here, and then we'll dive into the content.
Welcome to the Academy at learntourism.org. Our mission is to advance the tourism industry by leveraging science, business psychology, and adult education to build sustainable economies and foster meaningful experiences. We partner with destinations, travel planners, and industry professionals to deliver cutting-edge training programs and resources. Our goal is to equip you with the knowledge and skills needed to thrive in the ever-evolving tourism landscape. Through our learning experience platform, we offer customized course development and access to inspiring experts. These tailored solutions are designed to enhance professional growth and make a significant impact in the global industry. Join us as we explore new ideas and share valuable insights to shape the future of tourism. Together, we can create a dynamic and engaging environment that fosters innovation and collaboration throughout the tourism sector. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to a dynamic session. Connect with us at learntourism.org to unlock your potential and contribute to the vibrant world of tourism. Let's make a difference together.
All right. So again, today we're going to talk about some things, and what I'm most excited about, as Stephen pointed out, is that our whole team at Learn Tourism, we really are tourism nerds. And I think one of the best things that you can do is learn with other people and from other destinations. So what I'm experiencing in my community is going to be similar and yet different to what you all are experiencing in your communities. And I think the way that we can have more ideas about how to engage people and the way that we can make more clear educational strategic plans for our regions is to really go back and forth and grow and learn as a group. And so again, I just want us to be open to the idea that you have expertise that you can share, and that what we want to walk away with is actually actionable ideas, right? And strategies, things we can take home and implement. The other thing I just wanted us to have as a foundation is that one of the things I feel I've experienced, not just as a tourism professional, but also as someone who lives in a very big tourist area in a city that is really fueled by the economics that are brought to us through travel and tourism. The very sort of foundation of what we're doing, what people care about is belonging, right? Our residents want to feel like their home is their home. And when people visit our regions, they want to feel like they belong there and that they're connected to what they're experiencing. And so even though I think we can talk about lots of different data sets and different strategies, what it comes down to is this very basic thing that everybody wants to feel. And even when you're traveling and being challenged to get outside of your comfort zone, you still want to feel supported in that process. And I think, again, from the resident or local perspective, it's really important when you attract tourists that those people are coming in to participate and share in your values and uplift your region in a lot of ways. So that's a baseline of what we want to create. So I want to pass the mic over to Stephen to kick us off a little bit and talking about some specific things around education and loyalty.
One of the things that I think makes travel unique is that the people who produce it and the people who consume it have one thing in common, and that is a love for learning. It took me a really long time to understand that my passion wasn't just travel. It wasn't art. It wasn't architecture. It wasn't nature or music or food. I do love food. But it was the fact that with each and every one of those experiences, I was able to learn. And that desire for learning and that ability to appease that desire is what builds loyalty. If we go ahead and loyalty and understanding a people, understanding a place makes you proud to be there. I want to share with you, when people learn, they're invested emotionally. If I'm connected to a place, if I'm connected to the people, if I'm connected to the food, the music, everything that's around me, I'm invested. My emotions are involved. For locals, that means that not only do we have the opportunity to learn how to protect our environment, and I say our environment collectively, meaning our entire community, but also to promote it. And most importantly, to be a part of that warm and gracious and authentic welcome that makes people feel like they are a part of the community, even if they're there for just a short period of time. One of the things that we also look at teaching visitors, and one of the reasons that their learning is important, is that they want to feel like they're part of the community. They want to feel like they're getting a unique experience that nobody else is going to get, that they're doing things nobody else is going to be able to do. But it's our job to teach them how to respect the community, its traditions, to be stewards for the land, the path, and the experiences and the activities that they're partaking in, and to plan to visit again. Every cruise line, you're going to learn before you get off the cruise what the next cruise is that you're going to go on. And I think that's a fantastic example. Maria mentioned the ambassador program. We actually looked at our program that's currently running with the Poconos. Over 493 enrollments in their community. 76% completion rate, which is well beyond the national average for any type of online learning, and over 375 certifications. I want to share some insight too that we've gotten from the surveys of folks that have participated in those courses about how their learning impacts their ability to deliver better guest experiences. It comes from buy-in from locals. In Baton Rouge, one of their participants said the organization Visit Baton Rouge does just as much for residents as it does for visitors. This comment illustrates how learning about one's own city can increase civic pride. It can reinforce the value of the destination for locals. Well-structured learning also validates the residents' role in the tourism ecosystem so that they can become champions of place, not just proud of place, but champions for place. Their visitor engagement empowers frontline advocacy. Another quote from a participant in the Visit Baton Rouge project is they're prompted to ask and offer recommendations based on the guest's need, understanding empathy and how it's applied to visitor satisfaction. Learners are just not absorbing information, but we're teaching them how to apply it in real-world visitor interactions. It's proactive, it's needs-based, and it enhances the visitor experience by building loyalty. One more that we heard from Visit Baton Rouge, and then I'll come into some for Poconos. I learned how much is available on the Visit Baton Rouge website that I can use when helping guests and planning with family and friends. It's transforming awareness into action. That is what structured learning does. When learning is well structured and directly applicable, it turns the casual participant into an informed advocate. This is in part because of course design that aligns with the real life use cases of visitors. We have, of course, resource discovery, turning locals into knowledge hubs, and positive emotional responses with motivation from guest experiences. In the Poconos, we saw increased confidence, willingness to recommend, an appreciation for knowledge, and suggestions are showing active engagement in their community beyond that. I know I'm taking up my time. I love this kind of stuff. I'm a dork. So Sarah, please cut me off and move on to the next slide, which I know is yours.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I just want to add too that one of the things I think is really valuable in what you're saying, I know here in Asheville, one of the things that we struggled with at one point was some of our newer businesses didn't feel like they were getting the attention that some of our more established businesses had. And so we really had to go back into the community and kind of train everybody. We know that this is the typical thing that you've been saying for the last 10 years, but there's a bunch of new options and we need to infuse those options so that the people who are growing their businesses here can feel like they're getting a piece of the pie and stuff. And so that's just like a good example of what you're talking about. The learning never ends, right? You have to keep expanding and going back over what it is that you're teaching people to say. So we're going to share some things with each other. I want to welcome Caleb. I know he just hopped in, so thanks for joining us. We're going to be sharing some of our own ideas with each other in a couple breakouts soon. But building trust and local engagement is something I wanted to tap into because it's been a really big deal in my community. So I feel personally attached to the conversation around how we engage residents and how we build their trust while we're growing our regions and our cities and towns. Because I just think when you think about this in the very sort of early stages and you bring the community in, it makes a big difference in how when you're really growing and you're bringing in new visitors and you see that acceleration. I think if you don't have the local buy-in at that point, it creates this other journey, which isn't necessarily bad, but is maybe just a more difficult journey. And so I feel really, it's such a key thing to figure out how you get your community to engage and say that they understand what tourism is doing, they understand the value of it, that they feel heard when something isn't working, right? I think it's really important to engage from that level because I've had the experience of living somewhere where I think we didn't think about engaging at that level till we were partway down the path. So we've had to rebuild our trust rather than build it, which is a different process. And at the end of the day, how the locals feel about what's going on, more than any of the other promotional things that you do, how the locals feel is directly and viscerally, I think, impacting the visitor experience. I think we all know this when we see different places where there's a struggle, right? In the last few months, there's been an issue in Spain where their tourism has created some negative feelings in different places. And that's really impacting visitor experience at a deep level. It doesn't matter how much marketing they do. If when people are there, there's not that positive energy and that connection, right? So I think it's just really important to make this a big priority. And what I love most is thinking of our own residents as the co-creators of the experience. I think that does two things. I think it not only gives the visitors a better experience when they feel like they're actually connected to the community, they really they have direct interaction, they understand what the community is about, they see the community advocating for different things or representing different things or caring about their culture of their region. But I also think that on the flip side, it makes residents and locals feel really valued when we bring them into the conversation. And so there's lots of different ways that people do this. I think listening sessions, different recognition programs, paid incentives, different types of certifications. You can get really creative with how you present the value back to your community for their involvement and why they do different things. And I just wanted to share a couple examples from my community. One is when we went through COVID, obviously a lot of us had different campaigns and programs where we had to re-educate people about what was going on. We have a lot of black bears in Western North Carolina. So we took the black bear approach and we had this Bear With Us kind of initiative. And it was really that dualistic training of we need to have messaging that's going out to our own visitors to say, hey, we're coming back online. We're working as hard as we can, but things are maybe a little slower than you're used to or things like that. And we wanted to be able to have that kind of information out there. This also, though, was paired with an internal conversation we were having with our own workers because a lot of people had lost some staff. There's a lot of workers doing long hours and things like that. And so we didn't just want to communicate with the public. We wanted to communicate with them that this campaign was to try to help them as well connect with the visitors as they came back online in 2021 and to feel like we were trying to watch out for them. Also in the state of North Carolina, we have a big program around outdoor North Carolina that's really focused on people making a commitment, which is not quite a certification, but making a commitment to certain behaviors. And you'll notice with the state, we've actually done everything from contests and giveaways, all sorts of cool incentives to get people who are passionate about the outdoors to really join this kind of outdoor North Carolina movement and commit to whether they're a tour operator, whether they're somebody who is just part of the public and likes to do different outdoor activities. Maybe they do kayak tours or something like that. We want to bring those people together. And we really want to have everybody on the same page about how we expect people in the state to treat our outdoor areas. So I want to go into a breakout where you all can we'll just do small breakouts today, but I'd love for you all to just share, is there a training, a program, an educational opportunity or campaign that you're already offering or that you're planning to offer, like the ideas in the works? And what kind of impact do you hope that this creates for your community? And I'm just going to create some breakouts really quick. And I see Jennifer's on the line with us. If you can't come on camera, that's fine. You should be able to still unmute and engage with folks. And I'm just going to create these. And let me just get this to function fully. Sorry, y'all. I haven't done the breakouts in a while. It's doing its own
I
thing.
didn't even know you could do breakouts. This is fun.
It should
Yes.
be fun. I think every learning experience has to have an element of fun. If it's not fun, it's daunting. And who wants to participate in something that's daunting? And
Yeah.
at least we need a way for me to get my life together because that we could be days,
Awesome.
years, decades.
So again, I'm just going to put you all in a breakout for about 5 minutes. And then when it's done, you'll get a little warning. It'll bring you all back in here. And the question, like I said, is have you been offering or are you imagining that you want to offer some type of community education or training, whatever it is? And if so, what is the impact that you really want it to have? And like I said, you'll each have about a minute. We've got more people joining real quick, but you'll each have about a minute to share and then we'll come back. And the room should be open. All right, welcome back, everyone. I always love it when people come back from the breakout rooms because they always have smiles on their faces, which I just feel like is always a good feeling when you come back into the space. So again, we're going to have some opportunities to share with each other again in just a moment. And thanks for joining us, Tanya. Again, sorry you were getting in and out of those, but hopefully you can be in the next one.
Thank you. Sorry to be disruptive today.
No, not at all. We're glad to have you join. The next couple things I just want to touch on. First is training staff for impact. Again, this is something that I've been really involved with over the years, especially in hospitality and tourism, working with our local community college. And I think this is a spot where I've seen so much power in like really helping people that maybe don't often think about marketing and promotions and tourism and how it brings people to the area, really giving them a chance to kind of sit with the impact it has, because I've watched amazing chefs and amazing hotel front desk people that when they realize that connection between things, they just see the power that they can gain from that, which is really exciting. I think whenever it comes to trainings for people that are in the workforce, it's really important that you really stick to short, relevant, and something they can do on their phone. Really being clear with folks. Like, we want to make it as easy as possible for the workforce, especially people who are working maybe swing shifts, right? They're not a 9-to-5er, for them to be able to learn in a way that's just going to fit into their lifestyle. And that's where micro learning has become such a trend. Really having things that are really short and to the point is very valuable, and letting people digest smaller amounts of information rather than giving them so much at once. And then making sure that they get some type of recognition, some type of excitement, some type of cheerleading. I think a lot of this has to do with what we see in online training with gamification. How do we give people a way to play while they're learning? This is something I think as adult learners, we forget sometimes, right? That learning actually should be fun. We should be having play. We should be allowing our brains to expand and consider new things. That actually is what makes things stick in your memory better. When you feel connected to it, when you understand it, when you can relate it to something personal in your life, you're better at remembering it. You're better at figuring out how to apply what you're learning. So really giving people a way to play in the process, I think, is valuable. And again, there's so many different ways. Badges, shouting people out on social media, giving them a certificate that they can display somewhere, featuring them in other parts of your content, and really celebrating the work that they're doing. Especially with adult learning, most of us have jobs, right? Most of us have a lot of responsibilities. We're working 40 hours a week. We're taking care of our families. We're doing all this stuff. If you've carved out the time in your life, even if it seems like a small amount of time, to learn something new, to gain a new perspective, to step into other people's shoes and understand that visitor experience more, or maybe even the residents' perspective more, I think it's worth really high-fiving each other for fitting that in. There's many people who don't fit it in. So there's lots of real-world examples of how this plays out. Having short types of video tips as a DMO that you can share with different frontline workers, having buy local and local pride types of signage that you can give your local businesses to display in their windows. I was a bartender for many years. That's how I got into hospitality. It was like one of my favorite jobs ever. And one of the things I went through state by state in different places that I worked was sort of safety trainings, really understanding how to help people and things like that. Thanks, Jordan. Great to have you join us. Conflict communication, again, when I was in hospitality, that came up numerous times, right? When I worked in hotels, when I worked in restaurants, is there somebody that can maintain their composure, even when it's busy, and talk things out and solve a problem? And who is that person? How do we make sure that there maybe even isn't just one person who can do that's the stressed out manager? Maybe there's a few different people who have those skills to say, we know how to. I got really good at figuring out how to get men much larger than me to give me their keys and get in the cab, right? That was something I really learned when I worked in Boston. We had some very strict laws there. And really just think about those visitor FAQs. How do we really empower people to almost preemptively and intuitively be ready for those questions or those issues? How do we help them just understand, did you know these facts, that we know that the visitors are going to need this information? I've had quite a bit of that in the mountains here over 25 years. There's different things about being in mountains that not everybody knows, especially when they're visiting. So there's stuff we have to tell them about the GPS and how well it's going to work, or when they're going to be able to get on their cell data and take their Instagram photos. They might be expecting that's going to happen everywhere, and it doesn't. And so we need to prepare people for that stuff so that they don't have that kind of feeling of disappointment in a lot of ways. And again, foundationally, we're always going back to how we're connecting folks and that people feel like they belong. And I think a lot of that has to do with aligning our visitors with the values of our communities. And I do want to say it's not as simple as that sounds, because our communities have different types of values. Our communities are not all one group of people. Our communities and destinations are actually a multitude of groups of people. So I think in that sense, a lot of times in tourism, we become the matchmakers, right? It's like what we want to do is take the visitors who have these values and match them with the people in our community that have those values, and then vice versa in some ways. That doesn't mean people aren't going to cross-pollinate and get challenged to have a different perspective. That's the beauty of travel. But I do think we're looking for ways as destination leaders to help people figure out what's their best experience going to be. And that's where storytelling becomes so important in all the different ways that we're communicating, because those stories are easier ways for people to relate. They're easier ways for people to know, I'm going to feel comfortable here. I'm going to feel aligned here. This is exactly what I wanted out of my vacation. It's going to happen in this place because the story they're telling really resonates with me, right? So how do we set up that win-win for everybody in advance, right? So that on the ground, people already come into it knowing what to expect and knowing they made good choices and they have the experience that they prepared themselves for. This, again, there's lots of examples of how people do this, tons of different educational tools whether it's inside of a course or it's inside of a campaign, inside of different types of materials that you're providing, but really giving people clarity when they get email confirmations, when they get different materials before they arrive, right? Even when that's the guides that we put out for our destinations or the stuff that we're going to have in our visitor centers. QR codes, of course, are always really useful when they're paired with great landing pages that help people really be prepared to know before they go and to have everything clear and aligned. And one thing Stephen and I have talked about is remember, don't always make people read that information. You might want to have some text about it, but you might also want like a 30-second video about it. You might want a few different things, an animated graphic that just helps different people who retain information in different ways to get that information. Because sometimes I know I'm a writer, so in a lot of ways I have to remind myself I'm probably reading more than most when it comes to what I'm putting out. So how do we take that multimedia approach and really utilize that? So there's a few examples out there that I just pulled that are some of my favorite. One is, I don't know if you're familiar, over the last 5 years, 6 years or so, Amsterdam has been doing this. They've had this movement called the Untourist movement, which sounds bad, but it's actually not. It's a really cool concept where they really decided to maximize what they're doing with their locals to create these experiences that allow you to be more than a tourist, right? To be this like person who's really interconnected. My favorite thing that they offer, because they offer a number of different cool kind of experiences, but they have this thing called like Marry an Amsterdam person. And the idea is they pair you up with a local for the tours to hear about what they do, what they love about the city, right? And so they've created that to try to create more bonds between the people who live there and the people who are visiting. Because there was a time where, in 2018, 2019, the people who lived in Amsterdam were just feeling really overwhelmed and that what they were doing wasn't working, right? And I love the creativity that they've come up with to create these experiences that just make the locals feel really good and really connected and actually help them meet tourists and connect to those people directly. And then it's also just giving the tourists a perspective of this is what it's like to live here. This is the challenges. This is the amazing things. Here are some things you may never have heard of. And Hawaii has done some great work in the same direction. Right. So they are taking a little bit more of a pay it forward perspective. But the idea is, as you see, like the options they give you, that you can really engage with the locals and volunteer to help their communities and learn about the flora and fauna and clean up the coast and do different things like that. There's the other thing in Amsterdam is they will take you on a tour of the canals and you will clean up the plastic that people are dropping in the canal sometimes. That really excited me when I saw that when I was there, right? I just thought that was a really cool thing. So this way that you connect in and really show as a traveler that you care, this is something that's becoming more and more popular, especially with younger generations. I think it also makes people who are conscious of the footprint they're creating when they're traveling. It gives them an option to contribute in a way that's really unique, but it's also building a lot of goodwill, right? And then just consistency. I have a background in marketing, and I'm always telling people the biggest thing I think we always have to remember is no matter how the technology changes, the one thing that doesn't change in building a relationship is you have to keep showing up and you have to be consistent and you have to really, that's why brand kind of image matters, brand voice matters, understanding your personas matter, because you really want to have that kind of clarity and you want the people in your community to also have that clarity. So you have this shared vision. And this is where I think at Learn Tourism, we're always #never stop learning, right? That's our big focus. There's always room for us to grow past the mindset that we've had. And I think that's where in the tourism and travel world, we want to think of education as something that just continues on. And again, I think that's because we have to keep growing and changing with the trends and with the sentiments of our communities, and along with the expectations of the visitor. I also think in our industry, the technology itself that we touch and use is changing rapidly. And so we have to have this perspective that we don't know it all and there's more to learn. And every day that we wake up, that's the truth. But I think this is, again, how we build that trust that we talked about in the beginning. And again, one thing that I love about our team too, we focus a lot on know better, do better. So it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not be perfect, but it's about whether or not you learned from the experience and you could keep growing. And I think that's something we want to plant that seed and nurture that idea across our communities everywhere, that it isn't necessarily perfect. Travel and tourism involves a lot of different people. It's not always going to be completely smooth and not everything is always going to go right. But how we handle those things, again, that's something that we can all really learn together, right? And so getting feedback from visitors, getting feedback from your own residents and hearing what they have to say, having trainings that are happening annually, and even sometimes asking people to go out there and have an experience and come back and tell you about it so you can get an honest perspective. And that's that mystery shopper idea. And I've done that in a number of different communities where it was like, we're going to ask this influencer that we know we're bringing in to go and have an experience and then come and feedback with us honestly about it. Like what was great about it, what didn't quite work. Again, when you have a good relationship with someone and you can ask them for that stuff, it's not as risky to do. It's really about building that relationship and you learn so much. You're able to make every experience after that better, which is so worthwhile. So I want us to have another discussion and share a little bit of our own ideas as we're wrapping up today. First, I'm wondering if y'all can pull up the chat and just answer a couple of questions. We'll just see what everybody's saying about it, and then we'll talk about it in our small groups. Are you already offering some type of like local business training, education? I know Maria's got the ambassador program happening. Anybody else, like you can hold your hand up or just pop in the chat and say, yes, we're doing this. Awesome. It looks like a handful of folks are doing that stuff. If you want to just shout out popcorn style, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing? Is it time, budget, human resources, engagement with locals, support from leaders? Anybody want to share the challenge part? Julia, I see you said time. Maria, you're in the beginning stages, so you're not sure what the challenges are yet. They'll come up. A time, small staff with a lot going on. Yeah. I work with a lot of rural communities, Tanya, and we always talk about that. It's like we have so many great ideas, but there's only 3 people. So we got to prioritize. Anybody else have challenges they want to share? I will just say in Asheville, one of the things I think we've really, and again, this is unique to us in some ways, our local engagement is definitely something we're continuing to work on. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think we went through a period 20 years ago where we lost a little bit of the trust. And 2 decades later, we're still building the trust back and we're still working really hard to help the community tell us how they want to engage. If we want their feedback, sometimes we get this answer from them that I ain't got time for that. So we have to be like, okay, so what can we do to make you feel like you want to give that time? Because we do value your time. We don't want you to feel like we're just asking you to take time out and answer surveys and stuff like that. Maria, turnover of employees at businesses. Yeah, so in the hospitality industry, we've definitely felt that too. Right. Does anybody know what they're training? What is the outcome that you're really looking for? Is there something that's already an outcome you're excited about? Or is there something that, like Maria, you are hoping to get from that ambassador program? If you just want to popcorn again, share in the chat or just unmute.
Okay, my name is Ife. Like I said, I'm from Grand Prairie in Alberta, Canada. And so we have a volunteer program we're trying to work on for seniors mostly, but just a few days ago, we decided to make it all round because tourism is not a respecter of any age. And we intend to make sure that these volunteers tell the best stories of the community to the locals. So we plan to have them at the visitor information centers, at the airports. So I'm just working on the training, trying to see, because here in Canada, you need to have a training manual for them. You need to have orientation. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now, trying to compare what they have at Explore Edmonton. So because we are in a smaller community, we're in the rural area here in Alberta. And I'm trying to see what destination Vancouver, they've had their own for a very long time and it's worked for them. So we're trying to see how best we can also adopt that strategy because we know a lot of people want to tell the stories. Thank you.
That's awesome. And I hear, go ahead, Stephen.
I was going to say, Jennifer had a great comment, and that goal being about awareness of the tourism industry and the CVB's work and the role that they have in supporting longer terms of stay in the region. Absolutely.
And I see Julia's comment about to really ask the frontline workers to be more participatory in everything. I think that's so important because a lot of hospitality workers have felt a bit left behind historically in as like maybe not as important to tourism, but they're so key. They're so key, especially in places like we have a good food scene, which I know Lexington also does. And like that food scene brings in so many people. And so we really want those people that are waiting tables and bartending and cooking to feel connected in to what we're doing.
And I think that supports Maria's comment too, is when your frontline staff is giving better recommendations, when they know about more attractions, more things to do, more places to go, more experiences to have, you're encouraging the visitor to stay longer or to come back to experience the things that they didn't get to try.
Yeah, and Tanya, I see your comment about getting owners or managers to really support their workers coming in and being trained for things like this. How do we kind of build that infrastructure for sure? Because a lot of times, like as people who are frontline workers, they need to get paid to do professional development. They might not be at work for an afternoon or something like that. Getting that buy-in is really valuable. I know here in Asheville, we have something called the Asheville Independent Restaurant Association, and they don't handle every restaurant in the city, but their group has been great about bringing the independent restaurants together and fostering that continuing education perspective with the restaurants and how they can all make space for their folks to get trained on different issues and things like that. Maria, I love that idea of youth joining the industry, connecting more with young people. And I've been really involved in our community college in the hospitality and tourism program. And that's been so exciting. And sometimes it is young people. I'm also amazed at the amount of older people that go back to school to get like to further their education. And some of those people are really cool. Like they've already had a lot of experience in hospitality. So they're bringing some really great stuff to the table. I want to hop into a breakout just for the last few minutes, and then we'll wrap up. I really want you all to just share with each other, is there something that's inspiring you? Is there an action you can take based on what we're talking about today? Again, maybe it is a goal that you've articulated and you're like, as we're running our program, we need to make sure that we understand this goal and that we're tracking it and we can see that it's gaining momentum. Or possibly you are thinking about a training in the future and there's something where you're like, oh, we could utilize this particular strategy. Or maybe you're already running a program and there's just something we talked about that you're like, maybe if we added that, it would create more buy-in or it would create more excitement. So we're just going to take 5 minutes. I just opened all those rooms. And again, you'll get a little warning before we close out. Welcome back.
Sorry we cut you off on that one, but it was a really good stream of thought you had going. Thank you.
You just read my, I was going to say, was there anything unfinished that anybody needs to share?
Jennifer was asking about how do you make education more fun? How do you increase engagement and that sense of play and participation? And I think when I talk to folks about training and education, you have to present context with content, and you have to allow space for self-discovery. As a digital nomad, that means space for getting lost. And the more ways that people can find their own path with guidance, the better their learning results are going to be.
Anybody else have anything they want to share answering that question? I'm just curious if anybody else has noticed like what makes things more fun for folks.
I feel that there's, for those people who are really passionate about this industry, regardless of where they work, but they understand they interact with more than just locals in their community, that they'll appreciate knowing more, but you always have those deadheads, right? It's just a job. I'm just here for whatever time frame. So I just think of looking at making an impact to different people, local, and that'll carry on.
I think it's important to just remember, like I said, our communities are made up of all different types of people. So what's fun to some people is not fun to others. It's a journey of discovery. Stephen said, like the answer to that question isn't always so clear as much as it is like, how can we make sure that what we're offering is diverse? And there's different ways for people to engage, different things that might spark people so that they can go on their own journey, because that's what I think actually at the end of the day makes people feel good about what they did. It's funny, one little trick that I use that goes along with that is I've been teaching for many years online, and I've always had this strong principle with every program I've taught, that especially because I've taught all around rural America, and sometimes my students, like, they're coming to class with their grandkid in tow, or I've had students that were in their car because they don't have good internet where they live. They had to drive somewhere and then they're in their car on their phone. And I was always like, hey, the principle is come as you are. I don't care how you look. I do need you on camera so we can all get to know each other, so we can all actually invest in the program. But we're going to start with this. You don't have to look good. You don't have to be dressed for anything. I don't care, as long as you're doing whatever's going to make it good for you to learn. And that always sets a certain tone with people where we take down that need for perfection and we make it more fun and silly. And it's okay if somebody's grandkid jumps in and says something crazy. And that just makes it, that fun sort of spreads, which is great, right? Like that come as you are value really worked.
Sarah, it's humanizing. It's humanizing not only the individual who's participating in learning, but the content. It's storytelling. It's beyond throwing fish, as I say. You can throw a lot of content at people, but for it to stick, it has to be relatable in one way or another.
Awesome. I know we're right at the top of the hour. I really appreciate y'all joining us today and just sharing your thoughts and your wisdom and your questions, your ideas. I will share the recording and the slide deck tomorrow. So please feel free to share it with anybody else you know who could use the information and might be able to learn from it. You'll also have Stephen and I's contact information in there. So if there's anything we can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out. But have a great rest of your day. And thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you, Sarah. You're a delight.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Have a great rest of your week.